get right. Bump, looking at this game on Thursday, what needs to change?
What needs to change? The Seahawks have to do better stopping the run. You're looking at the Niners. You know that you can put any running back in that backfield, and for some reason, Shanahan allows him to flourish, and that's why Mason is second in the league right now, 536 yards. You have to be able to stop the run, and you got to run the football. Easier said than done when you're looking at that Niners box. You got Fred Warner in that box. When you think of the Niners, you think of play action, misdirection, running the football, shots down the field, and just solid defense. So if I am the Seahawks, okay, get to your gaps, rally to the football, take down Mason, and then you got to get Ken Walker going, Zach Charbonnet going. Be stubborn with the run. Offense, defense, all about the run. That's football for 100 years.
No, one thing Seattle's been struggling with here is also an offensive line, particularly guard play, that hasn't really allowed them to be quite as dynamic as they want to be. It's worked at times. We've seen Ken Walker have multi-touchdown games. We've seen him go off for 100 or more yards. It wasn't the case against the Giants. So where does this offensive line, where does Geno, where does Ryan Grubb play in on Thursday?
Well, the Giants did a good job of dialing up blitz and slants at the right time. It's almost like they knew when the Seahawks wanted to run the football, even though they only ran it a handful of times, right? But it's more about just getting to your guy. A lot of times, Stacy, if you are 6'3", 6'4", 300 pounds, just get to your guy, and you're going to make things happen because running backs will make you right. If you look at the best runners in the game, Derrick Henry, Saquon Barkley, they set up their runs. If they can just follow the big to that linebacker, their movement with the ball will set up that block for them. So if your big behind ain't even getting to the linebacker or the edge wherever you're supposed to get, then you stand no chance. So just be assignment friendly. If they can be assignment friendly, you give yourself a chance because you got a running back in Ken Walker who's more than capable of turning something out of nothing.
Mike Macdonald has had a lot of firsts this year. Your first road game, right? Your first game of the season, of course. Your first time dealing with a ton of injured starters. That happened against the Lions, missing 5, then 6 defensive starters. Now comes another first. First game against a divisional rival, that being the San Francisco 49ers. You think he's feeling some of that heat, feeling some of that pressure?
Well, he's been around the block. He's 37, but he's been around the block. He's played in big games with Baltimore and with Michigan, but this is different. You don't know about a primetime Seattle versus the Niner game until you are in it. Even the fans, if you're a fan and you've never been to one of these games, you're going to feel the difference, and I think he will too. But when it's all said and done, I think coaches and players can do a great job of just blocking everything out and just focusing on the football game. It's the stuff leading up to the game that can get you, right? The press is going to be different for Macdonald this week. Players are going to be asked to do a bit more when it comes to the press this week. All those distractions, but once you get to practice, once you get to the game, you just focus in on what you have to do. So, yeah, all the pageantry before the game might be a bit different, but once you line up, it's play football, do your job, and just tackle, please. Goodness gracious.
I would think that for the 49ers, a typical secret weapon would be Christian McCaffrey. They're not going to have him in this one. They haven't had him at all this season. But maybe their secret weapon is that Kyle Shanahan is just a brilliant play caller.
Right.
What's Seattle's secret weapon going to have to be in this one?
Ooh, secret weapon. It would have to be spreading the football out. I think getting all 3 of your starters at the receiving spot targets, getting the tight ends going. We've seen A.J. Barner get more involved in the offensive plan this week. On the other side for the Niners, man, you're right. It's just Shanahan knows how to call up plays. And you still have weapons. You still got Kittle, you still got Debo. You still have Ayuk, who had his biggest game last year. So it's about distributing the ball properly, right, and then just influencing the defense to take those false steps. That's what the Niners do a great job of doing, and that's what I think Grubb has to do a great job of doing. You talked about getting the play action going. How do you do that? You run the football, get linebackers to bite. Now you can start moving them east and west and north and south.
It feels like some classic football rules here, right? Establish the run, stop the run.
It's real simple, real simple. Easy game.
If only it was so easy, right? This team wouldn't be coming off back-to-back losses. But speaking of those back-to-back losses, one of them against a really good Lions team, and it was kind of easy to write that off and go, oh, but you tried. You know, you got a new head coach, you had so many injured starters, you tried. Then you fall to the Giants. No disrespect to the Giants, but they had no business winning that game. I mean, this was a team that kicked themselves. I am worried that against the 49ers are a team where you can beat yourself playing that team.
Yeah, I think Niners fans were saying the same thing about the Cardinals. You had no business losing to the Cardinals, right? And then Seahawks fans were saying the same thing about the Giants. You had no business losing to the Giants. That just shows you just how tight the competition is in the NFL. So if I am the Niners, I'm looking at what the Giants did as far as pressure with their big man and dialing up these blitzes at certain times, and I'm doing exactly that. You have to be extremely aggressive. If I am the Seahawks, I'm doing the same thing, but the difference is the Niners are a bit more talented on the outside than the New York Football Giants were. Slayton still did his thing. Robinson did his thing. So now you're going up against a different talent pool, so to speak. So how are you going to mix things up with those guys? That's going to be the challenge. It's a copycat lead. So if I'm the Seahawks, I'm expecting pressure and those bigs to stunt and just try to get after the quarterback.
You mentioned that a lot of what Mike Macdonald is going to have to do heading into this game is going to be half the work off the field. What's that off the field work? Is it keeping a locker room together after 2 losses? Is it letting guys know that this is a huge, important game on Thursday night, but don't get too ahead of yourself? I mean, what's the off the work job for Mike Macdonald?
Pete was great at that, right? Of treating every game like it's a championship game. So Mike Macdonald has to do that in his own way. How big does he make this game? And then off the field stuff or off stuff outside of game day is just making sure your guys are prepped, that you're ready to go, that every question is answered, right? You take your time during your walkthroughs. You show them as many different formations as you can. You dive deep into the Niners. You go back to last year and find maybe some formation or some plays that they haven't shown this year and say, look, just in case we see this, you guys be ready to go. You know what it's like, Stacy. You show up for that test, and you look at the test, and you got all the answers down already. Like, cool, I know this already. I don't have to go through A, B, C, and D. You know the answer. Always go through all the answers, though. You don't want to skip.
You really need to double-check your work.
Double-check your work.
I have a lot of test anxiety.
Right? I'm not saying don't, but there's nothing like showing up to the test and you got it all figured out. So I think that has to be the goal, is the least surprises, the better for this defense. But there's always going to be some type of surprise because great coordinators build off of what they've done in the previous week. Okay, you may not have Byron Murphy in this one. We're going to be watching that. You're definitely not going to have Uchenna Nwosu, who would ideally be your leading pass rusher, but he's already missed a couple weeks this season. Instead, that's Derek Hall leading the team in sacks. So who's going to have to step up defensively for Seattle? Big Cat has to get healthy. I think it's important this week that if he's not 100%, you sit him down. He's the type of veteran that he doesn't need to go every single day. It starts in the interior. You got to see if Derek Hall is going to be healthy. He has a foot issue going on. He's the leading sacker for this team, 5, and I think it's good enough for like 5th or 6th in the league right now. Who's going to have to step up? If Byron Murphy is there, he has to be the savior, right? I don't expect him to win a game by himself, but sometimes you get that young energy. You get some just a feel that a defense is missing. And you just have to be violent in that box, man. And who brings the violence? It's the bigger bodies out there. So I'm looking at Cat, Murphy, Hall. And making sure that the 49ers don't do that to you, right? Keeping them at bay. A big test for your offensive line, which is kind of failed a few tests this year. Yeah, it's been tough for the O-line, but they're the closest group in football, and they got to be close this week, and it better be on point this week. The chemistry has to be on point. Find your linebackers, get a body on a body, let your running back work for you. Speaking of the offensive line, we're going to be talking with Laken Tomlinson, one of your starting guards, coming up at 12:30 today during the huddle. That preview for this game will continue at noon. The Messimeter text line is open on the Mac and Jacks text line, the messiest organizations right now. You and I included the Seahawks and 49ers only because they aren't meeting their own expectations. I would not put either of these teams, 49ers or Seahawks, in like a dysfunction pool. Nah. These are two teams with a lot to play for this season. In fact, Seahawks still holding that lead in the NFC West. 49ers favored to win the NFC West. I mean, this could be huge in terms of a division title battle. Yeah, this will determine a lot in the short term. Right? Season obviously is 17 weeks long. Guys get hurt. Offenses rise. Defenses fail. You go back and forth. And I think that's what we're seeing in this division, especially with the Seahawks and the Niners. Great games and poor games. Guys being healthy. Guys being banged up. So, no, this is a big game. Honestly, Stacey, these teams could be over, and this is going to be a big game. This is because it's a divisional game, and these guys are rivals. So, yeah, this is a huge game. I think it's bigger for the Seahawks than the Niners because the Niners have shown over the past 5-6 years that they're a solid team, and they have a program and a system that works. We got all this new stuff going on in Seattle. They're trying to find out exactly what their process is, what their system is, what works and what doesn't work. Big game for both, but I think it's more important for the identity of the Seahawks to win this game. The Niners could lose this game, and obviously they'll be devastated. You don't like losing games, but they have so much to rely on and fall back on, to whereas they can correct things and then meet up again week 11 and see what happens. All right.